What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 6, Episode 10, Bad Blood. So, it was a pretty good episode. Honestly, I think the biggest surprise that came out of this was just how well Constantine and Spooner worked together as a team. Something about their back and forth, like, they had some good moments and brought some good laughs as well. As far as the story of their whole escapade, I mean, nothing too surprising. You know, whenever John gets that blood at the beginning, you kind of figure he's going to use it at some point. And then at the end of it, whenever he gets all that power and he's like, oh, it scared me too and all that, kind of had a feeling, probably going to be too drunk on the power to really care. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty straightforward episode. It kind of does feel like this is sort of the setup for the end game for this season. John getting these powers and probably what's going to happen to him when he's using it. I don't necessarily how that's going to come to an end, but I'm assuming it's either going to take him down a dark path or something that he does accidentally because he doesn't really fully have control of these powers. But I assume that's going to be the focus. Obviously, there's still some alien stuff out there, and kind of interesting that there's aliens involved with John's magic. The fact that this fountain possibly it definitely is alien since Spooner was able to communicate with whatever gave this kid the abilities that he had to heal people. But the fact that somehow this alien was going to give John back his powers, I don't necessarily know how that's possible, but it is kind of interesting that aliens and magic kind of intertwine so closely, seemingly at least in the show. So yeah, I mean, straightforward there. The stuff on the ship, it's okay. I was kind of excited to see what they were gonna do with Mick Rory and him being, basically pregnant with these alien babies in his head. I was interested to see what they were gonna do with it because I do like Mick Rory as a character and I like just how crazy he can be at times, and he brings a lot of the laughs on this show. Unfortunately, it kind of feels like they're going more sentimental with it, where he's gonna learn to try to be a good father and be excited for the kids and all of that stuff. They could still have some funny moments with it, but yeah, this one it didn't really feel like the typical Mick Rory stuff. Like whenever he first found out he had a kid with his high school sweetheart, there were some great moments in that. And it was the moments when he got a little too sentimental about being a dad that I felt like they kind of strayed off the path that I wanted to see. The moments where he went overboard because he doesn't really know social cues and understand that sort of interaction, buying a section of the school by going back in time. That is the type of stuff that I want to see from him because it makes sense why he would do that. Him getting all emotional though and actually dealing with it in a positive light and being like, oh yeah, look at them, they're so tough and all that stuff. It's just not quite the humor that I expected to see. I don't know. It just not that they can't do any sentimental and emotional stuff with Mick, but I really prefer because of how crazy his character is and how truly psychotic he can be at times. Those are the moments when I feel like he's having the most fun, and I feel like the writers are having the most fun with his character. Whenever they kind of tone him down, make him a bit more sentimental, make him a bit more of a human, honestly, like a normal person, it's a little bit more boring. And I know that's kind of weird to say, but that's what Legends is. It's all about not being normal, not being the usual. They're all outcasts. So I don't know. I mean, granted, acting like this is normal whenever he's got aliens growing in his head, that of course is it could be funny in its own way, but mainly because it's Mick Rory. Like if this was somebody like Nate and he had aliens growing in his head and he got all excited, he's like, look what's in my aren't these dead little guys cute? I mean, look at their tentacles. Like that would be funny because that fits within Nate's character because he would get excited about this stuff. Mick, I could see him like getting protective or maybe he becomes an overbearing parent for these aliens in his head or I don't know, maybe something along those lines, but to see him getting all like happy and actually smiling about it, it didn't feel quite right to me. But that's just my opinion. I think the only other thing what else happened in this episode because it was Constantine Spooner and then Mick and his daughter. feel like there was one other thing that they kept cutting to. Oh, right. It was, whatever Gus all of a sudden just grows up out of nowhere. Don't know how, don't know why. They said apparently that's just how their alien species is. It's just very bizarre because it felt like that was more just in the background. They were fighting him off while Mick and his daughter were having this emotional heart to heart thing. And then they just kick him off the ship into this random place. Feels kind of weird. And not that they've not done something like this before, like what was it, Bebo? I think that's kind of how the whole Bebo thing got started, is they just sort of brought it back and left it back in time, and then all of a sudden it became a religion based around him. So it's not like they've not done something similar, but this especially because of the fact, I mean, it happened last episode where they brought him on the ship, and now all of a sudden they just kicked him off, and who knows where. It kind of feels a little odd, and I don't know. It would have been funnier, I think, if they just like destroyed him. Like he's all cute and seems all cute and cuddly and stuff, and then all of a sudden he grows up into this huge hulking monster, and they just like blow him up or something. And she's like, Gus, I can't believe we did that to him. I feel like that would have worked a bit better than just, oh yeah, we got him off the ship. Bye, Gus. And maybe we'll see you in next season. I don't know. But with all that being said, though, that's it for this one. On to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now, episode 11, The Final Frame. This one was pretty good. It was enjoyable. It was fun. You have a lot of I feel like the underdog sports stories, cliches in this. It felt like there were several homages taking place. I couldn't pinpoint all of them, but there were definitely, I mean, you've got your stereotypical bully who, I'll be honest, I know what he was going for, but even just doing that stereotypical, like, I'm gonna talk with my mouth like this the whole time, and just like constantly chewing gum with his mouth wide open, and I don't know. I guess because I've seen it done so many times, I'm kind of done with that cliche. It's just old and tired, and yes. I know they're aliens just mimicking humans, so that's the excuse, but it's still not something I really want to watch. And especially because at the end of it, I was expecting like a nice comeuppance moment. We really didn't get that. Like, they were just like, yeah, get out of here. And then they left. I was expecting the team to like kick their asses or something. But just little minor nitpicks for me. But yeah, I mean, it was fun for the most part. You've got Spooner apparently really loves bowling. Mick, of course, hates it. Doesn't want to take his gloves off, obviously, for the burns on his hand. So they're coming together at the end and her helping him be able to bowl even with the gloves still on. Oh, excuse me. Really forgot I shouldn't be drinking soda right before a review. Elsewhere, though, you've got a couple other stories going on. On the ship, I'll admit the whole distracting Ava thing was kind of frustrating for me. Because at some point she's going to figure out what they're doing, and you know she's not going to be super pissed off about, or she's not going to be super upset about what's happening, but she is going to be kind of pissed off that, why did you think this was a good idea to hide it from her? Like, it's weird to me, and it's Gary being Gary, but not in a fun way, because he obviously does stuff like this where he'll over worry, over analyze about something minuscule, but for something like this where it is keeping Ava out of the picture for something she might be able to help with, it's a little frustrating. And it feels like, I don't know, maybe because I've seen Gary do stuff like this too much, it's another kind of cliche of the show that's gotten a little bit too old for me. But yeah, it was pretty frustrating. The stuff with Constantine, though, that is something I am interested in to see more. Mainly because it does feel like it's building up to something kind of climactic. Maybe in the next few episodes we'll see. Obviously, there's only 4 episodes. Yeah, 4 episodes after this one. So we should be reaching a point of climax fairly soon. So maybe whatever is going on with him, we'll start to see that in the next episode a bit more, and then the episode after that will be where things kind of come to a head, and then you have the last 2 episodes to really face off against whatever it is that's going to come of him being essentially dragged down this dark path. But of course, the ominous words from the bowling alley owner at the end was just, it's one of those things where you kind of feel like it's starting to build. We're starting to get to that point of we're going to see what's the climax will be. So, but yeah, I mean, just seeing him really be all in on this dark form of magic. It's essentially, the best way I can put it, it reminds me of, what's it called? I had a good analogy for it when I was watching the episode, and now that I'm trying to do the review for it, of course, now the analogy is just completely gone. Crap. If I remember what my analogy was, I'll say it in the next episode review. But yeah, just the way he is essentially, instead of actually knowing magic, just using blood, essentially, to keep the magic in him strong for the moment. It was Barry and the Speed Force. Whenever the Speed Force was leaving and he was using like the artificial Speed Force, that's what it reminded me of. You know, that same feeling of it's not a permanent fix, which means he's going to constantly be having to rely on something that is not real. You know, it's not really the magic that he needs. And so it's going to, unfortunately for him, it feels like this side of magic is a lot more twisted and evil, where Barry's artificial Speed Force was just, you know, it was more of like a battery when he needs essentially to just be plugged into the Speed Force. So for this, it's obviously a little bit darker, a little bit more sinister in what he's doing. But it does leave the possibility open that maybe Constantine's going to be kind of the villain for the end of the season, and it's going to be kind of the team bringing him back from this dark path and kind of convincing him, sort of what we've seen from this team before. You know, this idea that, hey, maybe being normal is not so bad. Maybe not having these powers is not the worst thing in the world, because it's not just, your powers are not who you are. And I know for Constantine, that especially, it's such a part of his identity, you know, that he wants that magic, and he even talked about it in the last episode. And it is true. I mean, that is why he is so just desperate for it back. So I think maybe the team will have to talk him out of this idea that his magic is his identity. He can form his own identity in other ways, type of thing. If that's the route they go with it, I think that'll be good. I think it'll be a nice turning point for Constantine. And maybe he will find another way to get his magic back that's not quite so dark. And then the final one, of course, was Nate and Zari, and they had their little camping trip, the 2 campers that were right there with them. I mean, I know what they're going for. They're trying to bring up this conflict of Nate and Zari only have this one day together, and then she won't be able to be around for a long time, so they're trying to make the best of it. So, of course, you're going to throw in these annoying people that ruin their camping date. I get it. It's just, again, a cliche that I've seen done so many times, and especially when you bring in people who are so annoying and so obnoxious about it, just like with the leader of the Pin... Mike the Strike was his name. What are they called? The Pin Kings? No. I don't remember. But whenever you bring in somebody that is over the top with it, and you're already kind of sick of the cliche and sick of seeing this story that you've seen done a million times done again, it does make it a little rough to sit through. You know, so every scene where they're having to talk to these guys or they're hiking with them and all of that, it does sort of get kind of, okay, can we just go, please? Can we just get past this? As far as the relationship is concerned, though, I talked about this before. Obviously, the relationships in the show are not fantastic. You know, most of them are born out of, we're in this time ship together so often, so long. At some point, relationships will blossom. You will see that at some point. But I will say a lot of them have not been that strong. I do think Nate and Zari are a pretty good one. And I do think their story was a tragic one, how she essentially doesn't exist anymore in their timeline. So they had some nice moments in this one. I do think Zari's reaction to sort of everything going on was a little extreme. I get it. Like, I get where she's coming from. But I also feel like we haven't really gotten a whole lot of time. Like, maybe if we got a few episodes where we saw Nate visiting her inside the totem, maybe then we could sort of feel this feeling of, God, but we're together, but it's not it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel real, because we're so apart so often. But then, as Nate brings up in this episode, the alternative for him is a lot worse. The idea that she's just gone forever. So it was a nice moment, and I thought it was a good moment for Nate as well to sort of be there for her and help her, I guess, see why her way of thinking wasn't necessarily wrong, but why it was worse for him, from his point of view. So I liked those moments with them. It's not something I wanted to spend a ton of time on. So because they got a lot of focus, like honestly, their story and Ava's, and Gary distracting Ava, like those two stories took up a lot more time than I expected it to. I expected there to be a lot of focus on the bowling game itself, and then maybe on Constantine trying to get the Wave Rider to wherever Earth is. I thought that was going to be really the main two focuses. It wasn't really. All four stories got not an equal amount of time. I think the bowling story definitely got the most amount of time, but it felt like the other three side stories got a pretty good chunk of time devoted to it, and it didn't feel necessary for the Ava and the Nate and Zari stories. It felt like, I get where you're going. Can we just be done with it now and get back to the main story, please? Especially because Nate and Zari's story ends kind of almost a little silly. Because they do get out the gun. I did like them pulling it out and having the dial on it set to just middle finger. I did like that. That was a good joke. And them shooting the guy's finger as he's about to bowl. All of that was all well and good. But then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, it's a hefty backdraft there coming off of that blast. And you could see it's coming to essentially just like destroy everything in its path. And then all of a sudden their thing works and they can get on the Wave Rider out of nowhere. It's not like the Wave Rider just showed up. It had been there for a bit. Ava had already gone into the bowling alley and knocked on the door and all of that. So it's not like all of a sudden now, oh yeah, the Wave Rider is here now. No, it's been there. So the fact that they tried to make it seem like, oh yeah, we're about to be destroyed by this backdraft thing, and then why? Why couldn't you just have it where that they shoot the thumb or whatever finger it was, they shoot that, and then all of a sudden, like, as they're about to have this romantic moment, that's when the Wave Rider thing kicks on, it opens a door automatically. I don't know, something along those lines, instead of making it like this dramatic, oh my gosh, they're about to die, just kidding, gotcha. It felt weird, it felt unnecessary to me, but anyways, all that being said though, that's about it for this one. On to the final of these 3 episodes. I'll see you there. And finally, episode 12, Bored, Onboard, Onboard. Anyways, I like the setup of this episode. My problem comes with the execution of some of it. I do like what they're doing with John. I do think how they're handling him right now, the way that they brought this game into it and how he brought all of them into the world of this game, and how that sets up for essentially his darker side to essentially become its own person inside the game. I liked that setup. I liked how it really it presented itself in a clever way. I think is the best way I can put it. Like it was a smart idea. I like how they handled it. I like, again, everything they're doing with Constantine's character at the moment and how they're handling him, showing him essentially this addiction that he's giving into and how it's bringing out this darker side of him and all of that. Very well done. However, there is something to be said about the idea that John's magic brings them into this world, and then one of them, who's actually this beast, slowly becoming their character, to the point where even though they're all like, we gotta get out of here, people are actually dying, the one of them that is becoming the beast character also giving into their role and kind of turning it into a murder mystery episode. Now granted, I know why they didn't do that, because again, we need Constantine to continue down his character path right now. So I understand why they couldn't do that. But now I'm thinking about how fun an episode like that would be. And really trying to figure out who the beast actually is and all of that. So it's one of those things where it's fine, I get it, I liked what they did with it, but I also have a vision in my head of what I'd want to see now. and unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get to see that. But it could be fun. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of games like One Night Ultimate Werewolf and Among Us and all of that. So the setup of this was a pretty fun idea. The other side of the story, I feel like is, I guess, setting up for the big ultimate. I'm a little concerned just because it felt like Bishop's story was done, and yet here comes Kayla, and apparently she's working for him now because he helped her out, and so she helps him. I don't really know if this was part of the plan or not, or if it just so happened like they happened upon the legends. She finds out about this meat printer thing that Mick brings up, and so it's like, oh well, perfect chance to recreate Bishop again. But it does seem a little odd. Like I don't know how exactly he talked to her and convinced her of all this stuff if he doesn't have a body right now. I guess maybe contact her somehow because his brain was still in the cloud or whatever on his home planet. But yeah, it's we'll see what they do with it. But I don't know. I felt like Bishop's story was done. You know, he was a fun villain. You know, and I will enjoy seeing him interact with the rest of the legends because I did enjoy his interactions with Sarah. But it still kind of feels like, all right, well, we beat him, we stopped him, and now this is kind of a, oh no, we didn't actually fully stop him. Now we have to stop him again, and I don't know. It feels a little too samey to me. But it's one of those, if they handle it well, then I won't mind this. I won't mind the story. I won't mind what they're doing with it. If they make him a fun villain, if they make his plan interesting, I won't mind it, and I think I'll have a lot of fun with it, because again, he is a fun villain, and I think a villain that fits perfectly in this type of show where you're just meant to kind of sit back and enjoy the ride. But if they sort of do something similar where his plan is still the same, and he's still just like, oh no, I'm trying to help people by controlling them and that type of thing, and that's it, like that, his whole, you know, domination plan, I don't know, it feels like it'll be pretty standard and just kind of we could have done something a little bit more interesting. Again, maybe taking John down this path to where he sort of becomes the villain for this season, and they have to find a way to stop him without killing him, obviously, because they don't want to kill the friend. So yeah, it's very much up in the air as far as whether or not I'm going to enjoy the rest of this season. I get the feeling that I probably still will have fun with it, even if it's not exactly what I want to see, because again, the stuff with John being the beast and the darker side of him being the beast, I liked it, even though it wasn't the idea that was forming in my head, you know, at the beginning of this episode whenever they first got dragged into the game. So I don't think I'm going to, it's not like I'm going to sit here and go, I could not have thought of a better way for this season to go. But I don't think I'm going to hate it either. I feel like it's a fun show. It's a show that's really dragging me along, and I'm just enjoying everything they're doing and having some good laughs. But yeah, all in all, this was a fine episode. The stuff with Zari and Constantine was maybe a little heavy-handed, like this idea that she's in love with him and stuff. It's just, again, romances on this show are not the best handled, but they're not also not the worst, because, well, I mean, Batwoman exists for those. So, yeah, it's fine. It's one of those, they were sleeping together, so the fact that they're now turning it into more of like a no, I love him type of thing, as long as they don't do anything too stupid with it, I'll be okay with it. So, but yeah, I'm trying not to do that. So I probably need to call it quits for the night, go ahead and get some sleep. Yeah, that's about all I have. These reviews have been a bit shorter, but that's because there's not really a whole lot to talk about. Like, most of the stuff that they're doing is just, it's generic, good, enjoyable, fun stuff. It's not cringy, it's not annoying, it's a good time. So that's kind of all. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Or your thoughts on these 3 episodes. Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Legends of Tomorrow reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.